So...
Zoo in Denmark is going viral for its strange donation request. A Denmark zoo asking the public to donate their unwanted pets.
Pigs and rabbits and chickens, oh my!
Danish zoos are wild. They want your unwanted pets to feed to its animals.
There's a zoo in Denmark who wants your pets, say what? To feed its animals.
Yeah. What if I told you that these were incredibly misleading and stupid headlines? I swear, if I have to see one more of these things pop up on my newsfeed, I am going to lose it! Well, this is definitely keeping in line with the same theme as what was in my last video. You know, something manufactured outrage, something negativity sells, something clickbait, yada yada yada. Why are we like this? Okay, this is a very trending topic right now, so if there are people who are randomly stumbling upon this amateur YouTube channel of mine, hi, welcome, embrace the cringe, this is my channel of cringe, deal with it. So the TLDR of this whole thing is that, no, this is not some heartless, viciously unethical zoo running out of money and asking for people's pets in order to feed their animals. Just, no, please stop spreading that rumor, people. Basically, this is a giant translation glitch where what they were originally asking for is not what we English speakers at least would colloquially associate with the phrase unwanted pet. Please also note that they were not asking for cats and dogs either. In fact, on their website they specifically say they do not accept cats and dogs. That's not a thing. And this is certainly not intended to be some kind of callous solution for irresponsible pet ownership, or like, oh, we have a surplus of unwanted pets, let's go feed them to the lions, woohoo, problem solved. Like, no, just no. What they were asking for are surplus livestock animals that were probably going to be sent to slaughterhouses anyway, and or animals that were going to be put down due to things like old age. Specifically, what they're looking for are small horses, pigs, chickens, rabbits, guinea pigs, things like that. And yes, rabbits and guinea pigs are kept as livestock in certain contexts, okay? Calm down. Now, to be completely fair, if you actually do read or watch these news pieces in full, some of them do clarify this point. However, the framing of these sensationalist clickbait headlines really matters here, and my cats are being really annoying. Why? Anyway, the reason why this matters is because even if the article itself is more or less accurate in how it presents the facts, the framing of the headline itself has a very significant impact on how someone interprets or remembers the facts of whatever issue is at hand here. Which is to say nothing of the people who don't even bother reading the article in the first place. So, as someone who is a strong proponent of strong media literacy skills, I would like to break this down. Let's go. The cats are ready to go too. Now, first of all, this is not anything new. Denmark zoos have been doing this for a long time. In fact, it's not even really unique to Denmark. Many zoos and sanctuaries around the world do this in some form or another. It's just not always openly advertised like this. And again, this is not referring to quote-unquote unwanted pet that we would associate with in the colloquial sense. That is, it's not referring to the annoying dog your parents don't want anymore because it won't stop chewing up the couch or getting into the trash. It's not about getting rid of your neighbor's annoying cat. I mean, theoretically, it could apply to someone who got a bunny for their kid on Easter and now their kid doesn't want it anymore. But again, that's not the intent here. This is not about some callous solution to irresponsible pet ownership. With the horses in particular, it's usually because they're being put down for old age or some kind of severe injury or medical condition. Another example might be, say, someone is raising a bunch of chickens and they hatch a surplus of roosters. You can only have so many roosters in a flock due to chicken social dynamics. These roosters are going to be put down and often used for food anyway, so why not also use them to feed zoo animals? Now, it also must needs be remarked that this isn't happening because the zoo is running out of money to feed its animals. It cuts some costs, sure, but Conceptually, this really isn't that different than any organization accepting monetary donations. The majority of any zoo or sanctuary's animal feed is going to come from large-scale exotic animal food suppliers or even just normal commercial meat supply. However, when it comes to your larger carnivores like big cats, you don't always necessarily get access to these sort of large whole food items that can be so essential to your animal's health and well-being. This is the key thing: whole food items. They're not using these animals as live prey, and I think we could all agree that that would be pretty cruel if they were, but no, they specifically state that these animals are humanely euthanized first. So, why are these whole food items so important? The benefits here are twofold. One is nutritional, the other is enrichment. For the nutritional part, when you have a whole food item with intact bones and organs, there's a more diverse nutritional profile. This is especially important for your obligate carnivores that can't necessarily get those essential vitamins and minerals from other sources of food. Now, you can get around this by supplementing your meat chunks with vitamins and minerals, which is also standard zoo practice, by the way, and this is not a bad thing. It's vital to the health and well-being of your animals. But so is enrichment, where they can express natural species typical behaviors. For instance, you could just toss bite-sized chunks of meat to your crocodile, or you could also sometimes give it a whole food item where now it has to do the death roll as it naturally would in order to rip off edible chunks of food. See, when you have a whole food item like that, you're providing your animal not just a greater nutritional profile, but you're providing them with sensory and cognitive enrichment, where now they have to work for their food. They have to get past the fur and skin. They have to rip off chunks, break bones, chew on bones as they normally would. It's your perfect, organic, morbid, fleshy puzzle feeder! Your carnivores will love it! Unless you're a particularly dramatic, picky zebra shark or stingray that absolutely hates it when you give them fish with a head on it or with an intact spine. How dare you give them that slop, you monster! Okay, well, with that all out of the way, how did we end up here? How did we get headlines saying that the zoo was after unwanted pets? Like many other pointless controversies we humans get so fixated on, this one started on Facebook. Here is their original Facebook post reminding people that they accept donations of small animals to feed to their predators. The problem here is that this is the Facebook translation of the original Danish post. And Facebook Translator, it notoriously sucks. I mean, even here in the same post, they translated European links into European locusts, because apparently that's supposed to make sense. Anyway, the specific word that the zoo used in this post was husdyr, and this is what got translated into pet. Now, there are a lot of people out there saying that this more accurately translates to livestock, and if the zoo were referring to pets specifically, they would have said kæledyr. This is the part where I formally apologize to the whole country of Denmark for my pronunciation. I'm sorry, that was the best I could do. Okay, I'm trying, I really am. Don't come after me! But from what I've been able to gather, this is only partially true. While yes, husdyr often does refer to livestock, it's more accurately an umbrella term that could also be applied to any domesticated companion animal. And that does make sense in this context, because what's being donated could be surplus livestock, or it could be someone's pet that's at the end of their life and is going to be euthanized anyway. So you could make the case that the better translation here wasn't necessarily livestock, but just small domestic animal. What's interesting here, though, is that when you use Google Translate, it always translates husdyr to livestock. In fact, I found 2 different Danish articles talking about the zoo's reaction to this international outrage. One article only uses the word husdyr, the other one also uses kæledyr. However, in either case, Google translates husdyr into livestock. It's not until I use the zoo's original word-for-word phrasing from that Facebook post that it becomes pet. In fact, I could type out the sentence, and it's not until I add Aalborg Zoo that livestock becomes pet. I don't know why having the name of the zoo would change the meaning of the word. I don't know, maybe native Danish speakers could help me out here, but I feel like maybe Google AI is reacting to the fact that Aalborg Zoo has gone viral for supposedly asking for unwanted pets, and so they're like, oh, yep, that's what that word means now, here we go. I don't know, just a hunch. The good news is that at time of recording, I've noticed that more and more people have caught on to this little translation glitch. Sadly though, the damage has been done. Knee-jerk reactions from around the world caused the zoo to close down comments on that original post, and the media, not wanting to miss out on a good controversy, picked this up.
Denmark Zoo asks public to donate unwanted small pets or horses. Zoo asks people to donate unwanted pets to feed predators. Danish Zoo asks public to donate unwanted pets. Aalborg Zoo asks for unwanted pets to feed.
And you'll notice here that nowhere in the original post did they use the word unwanted, but that was tacked on because we saw the word pet, we had an emotional reaction, and so here we are. Tons and tons of people expressing outrage and moral panic against a position that the zoo is not actually taking, complete with animal rights organizations like PETA chiming in with their outrage, because of course they would. And then you got doozies like this.
I got an idea. How about you just let those caged animals go back to where they're from, right? If you can't afford to feed a giraffe, let it loose and bring it back to Africa. What? Justice for Fluffy.
Okay, Dave. Listen. I don't know why I need to clarify this, but, these donated horses, chickens, guinea pigs, they're not being fed to the giraffes. Okay, look, I know I'm being a bit pedantic here, because he was trying to make a broader point about zoo ethics in general, but just in the context of asking for donations to feed carnivores. He says, well, if you can't afford to feed your giraffes, I'm just saying, he did not think this comment through. But that's the whole point here, isn't it? People with these hot takes or outsized negative reactions to this are not thinking this through. They assume that the zoo is just being heartless or that it's in dire financial straits and oh, they should just send the zoo elsewhere if they can't feed their animals, even though there's no evidence of this. Or even going so far as to say, just release them all back into the wild. And this is what drives engagement. This is what fuels our news and social media ecosystems. And it's not anything new. But there really is something to be said about how social media just really magnifies this kind of brainless stuff. It awakens the mob within us, and it's so satisfying. We get this weird kick of dopamine as we gather our torches and pitchforks. Issues surrounding animals have a very particular way of doing this to us. I don't know why, it just is. All you have to do is present the mere aesthetic of animal cruelty and suffering to get people into a frenzy. We see the words unwanted pets paired with feed zoo, and lo, it is the perfect cocktail of outrage. And this all really begs the question, where do these people think their pets' food comes from? If not from the scraps of meat that we won't consume, or from slaughtered surplus livestock. Even the food for herbivorous pets comes from land where habitat was destroyed in order to grow crops, where various pest animals are routinely killed in order to keep them growing. So why is it any more cruel when it's feeding a zoo animal? Think about it, why? Even if this was targeting what we colloquially associate with the word pet, is it any more cruel than the thousands of unwanted pets who get euthanized at shelters every year? But it's not simply the pet that's at issue here. For a lot of people, this thing seems to be a proxy for negative feelings they have about zoos, period. And for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to litigate whether or not zoos are good or bad actually, but it is to highlight why you see so many comments that say things like, just set the animals free. It is also not lost on me that many people are drawing parallels between this and what the Copenhagen Zoo did to its surplus giraffe named Marius several years ago, where they euthanized him, dissected him in front of a group of kids, and then fed parts of his body to the lions. This was admittedly a much more controversial thing even within the global zoo community. Your mileage will vary as to whether or not you think what happened to Marius is okay, but I am bringing it up because so many people seem to be conflating these two stories thinking that this is the same zoo. It's not. Another thing that needs to be taken into account here are differences between cultural perceptions around death and nature. I can't really speak for other countries, but here in the United States at least, a lot of people have this very romanticized Disney-esque vision of nature and animals, and this translates into the zoo world as well. With regards to zoo population management, here in the US it is more common, or at least more culturally acceptable, to control breeding in the first place, where you either separate animals by sex or you use hormonal birth control, only allowing breeding in very specific contexts. Which is not to say that we never do any kind of culling of surplus individuals, but it tends to nowadays be more so with like fish, reptiles, and various invertebrates, where good luck telling them not to breed. You can't really give them birth control. And also, most of the public doesn't really care as much about a lizard as they would Marius the giraffe. But the important thing to keep in mind here is that there is a philosophical difference in zoo management between those in the US and various zoos in Europe, like the Copenhagen Zoo. We Yankees might be more comfortable controlling breeding in the first place, but the truth is, there can sometimes be welfare costs to that. Some individuals don't do well on hormonal birth control. Hormonal birth control has side effects. Others might not do well in single-sex social groups, and if you're dealing with a social species, you can't exactly keep them by themselves. Furthermore, breeding and, where applicable, raising young are normal, natural behaviors that animals are motivated to do. So the philosophical framework of zoos like the Copenhagen Zoo is it right to keep animals from breeding? So instead of micromanaging the breeding, they cull surplus offspring. It sounds cruel, but think about it. Is it any different than what happens in the wild? With or without human intervention, only a fraction of offspring make it to adulthood. As such, the culling of surplus offspring is basically an artificial recreation of nature, and feeding them to other zoo animals means they don't go to waste. I'm not saying you have to like that sort of thing, I'm just saying this is what it is, and this was the context in which the whole Marius debacle happened. Likewise, you may not be comfortable feeding Fluffy's remains to the lions, and that is perfectly valid. But consider also this Danish woman's perspective who donated her daughter's dying 22-year-old horse to the Aalborg Zoo.
I think it's a good thing when you say goodbye to your animals, that it serves a good purpose. If they come to a slaughterhouse where it really smells of death, that is something that horses don't like. It's a good experience here, and it's quiet, and the animals are calm.
Why Animals Do the Thing also has a pretty good post about this, and someone actually from Denmark who has worked somewhat in Danish zoos has offered their own perspective. Go check it out, I've linked it down below. But this fascinating comparison between different cultural perspectives on animals and death, it just gets utterly flattened by this constant slop of rage bait in our social media. Again, it's not anything new, but it is and always has been so stupid. And please don't take this to mean that I think all media equals bad. I don't think that. There's a lot of good journalism out there. But stuff like this, it's not keeping you informed, it's just making you mindlessly angry. And for what? Do you think this is making the world a better place? Do you think this is helping animals? Because it's not. It's really not. And where animals are concerned in particular, this kind of blatant sensationalism has the tendency to do a lot more harm than good. So please, folks, please, next time you see something like this, instead of giving a knee-jerk emotional reaction, take a step back and think. I don't know, maybe that is too much to ask. Well, one can only hope, I guess.